Before we start this podcast, I want to definitely remind you of a sponsor for Fresh of the Word, 20 by 20 Apparel. Founded in 2015, 20 by 20 Apparel brings original tributes to pro wrestling's classic arenas, moments, and events. They look to spotlight the bloopers, bleeps, and body slams along with the biggest, smallest, strangest, and strongest. In the world of wrestling, where there's hundreds of shirts, promotions, flyers, social media accounts, and ads, don't get lost in the sea of parody shirts and display fonts. They can provide professional graphic design services at a reasonable price. 20 by 20 also hand screen prints all the tees in-house. So if you'd like to discuss a possible run of tees, posters, koozies, foam fingers, or even Zubaz, then drop them a line at 20by20apparel.com. That's the number 20x, the number 20apparel.com. And also check out their enamel pin line. It's super cool.
Fresh is the word.
Welcome to the Fresh is the Word podcast. I'm your host, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier. And like always, we have the freshest of topics along with the freshest of guests for you. The guests for this episode are Kiarely, Castillo, and Kristen Sturgis, members of the metalcore band Conquer Divide. Recently, they dropped their first single in 5 years called Chemicals, along with a Billie Eilish cover of the song Bad Guy. We talk about, what it was like coming back to making music again, why the break, things that were going on in their life. Talk about my obsession with their song "What's Left Inside" from their debut self-titled album. We also talk about what they're dealing with during the pandemic, both personally and as band. I love Conquer Divide so much. I'm so glad they are back with new material. That's a high point of 2020. I do want to give a shout out to Kristen Sturgis of the band. She's been on the front line as a nurse, doing various contracts, both in Michigan and in other places. So my hats off to her. Salute. She's been doing the dangerous work. Been helping out with the pandemic with the COVID. So. She's, salute to her. She's been doing important, essential work. This is a band that I just want y'all to go listen to, man. Conquerdivide.bandcamp.com. That's where you can go listen to Chemicals. If you go into their YouTube channel, they have some really funny videos they put up, especially the 15 minutes of reading weird and mean tweets and posts from their career. That is hilarious. Super funny. I think Janelle, one of the members of the band, the screaming vocalist, she should just have her own show because she's hilarious. And ever since then, ever since that video, which I've watched probably about 20 times already, Kia says iconic so much that I've been starting to say it, and apparently she invented the word, so I'm gonna take that as is. So definitely go check them out, man. Conquer Divide, they're just a kick-ass band, kick-ass metal band. Before we get into that interview with Kia and Kristen, just what's going on. It's more of the weirdness of 2020, the pandemic. People think that wearing a mask is taking away their freedoms. With all the other things in the world and in this country that you could argue that is taking away our freedoms, wearing masks is what they want to, is the hill that they want to die upon. So I don't know, man. I just want everybody to be safe so we can get out of this. So we can go to concerts again and see awesome bands like Conquer Divide again with their awesome new music. Besides that, man, it's really not too much same old stuff, man. I just like I'm excited to do this do the podcast. We're coming up on 5 years. The 5 year anniversary of Fresh the Word is coming up at the end of November, and I'm not sure what I want to get somebody special for it. Somebody that's like influential in my life, whether I know them or not. I have a few things cooking in my head from previous times when I try to do anniversary shows, and yeah, we'll see how it goes, man. I'm going to reach out to a few people, but we got some good guests coming up in the future. A lot of great music, a lot of music guests, graphic novel writers. We got, it's just stay tuned to Fresh of the Word, on all the streaming platforms. If you can, please, 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 rate and review Fresh of the Word on Apple Podcasts, and also check out my other podcast, which is Renaissance Soul. It's a Detroit music history podcast, and we just kind of tackle a topic or album or whatever each week with somebody with that artist or somebody who's knowledgeable about it. We've had some great episodes thus far. I'm always thinking of new ideas of stuff that I want to talk about. So go check out Renaissance Soul. All of this can be found out at, you can find out more information about all this at freshasthepodcast.com. And, thank you, if I haven't said it yet, thank you to anybody that's listening, subscribing, sharing. It means a lot. I just want to build it up more. And hopefully we can. All right, after a word from our sponsor, let's get into the interview with Kia and Kristen from the band Conquer Divide. All right, welcome back to the Fresh the Word podcast. And like always, we have the freshest of guests for you. And joining me for this episode is Kia and Kristen, two members of the metal band Conquer Divide. And they have a new single called Chemicals out after a bit of a hiatus. And I'm so happy that they're back. This new single has been a bit of a joy in this shitty 2020 year that we're going through. So thank you for coming on the show, Kia and Kristen.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Like I said, it was when I got an email saying that there's going to be a new Conquer Divide song, I was just like, that just made my day. And I was just like, all right, not everything in 2020 is going to be crap. So you got the new single Chemicals. You also did a cover of a Billie Eilish tune, and so let's just get into it. Why'd y'all come back? What was the motivating factor that to like say, hey, we're gonna make music again?
I think like we always planned on coming back. We just had a lot going on. Like Izzy got married and then I got married, and that stuff takes like a year to plan. That's a long time. Like, I don't know. It's just a lot. And we also have other personal goals. Like Kia just recently started going to school, and I don't know. But we always planned on coming back. It was difficult, like after our first album was put out, because our label kind of went under, so to speak. And so I guess that was kind of a factor, because it's hard when you lose all your funding, and so we're self-releasing all this. So that was another thing too. You got to save up, because these things cost money.
Right.
So
Yep. Yeah, I would say like we kind of all really wanted to come back, and then like it just so happened that we got everything like ready to go right before all of the
right
shutdowns.
and,
yeah. And so then it was like, well, this is a good time. Like people are still at home, and maybe more people will be like bored, and they'll be like, let's check out this band we've never heard of.
I mean, it was a good sign that you got it,
Yeah.
that you got everything in before, everything hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it was literally like a week and a half, I think, before COVID first hit. Was it California or Seattle or something? Yeah. like we literally filmed our video, and then like a week later, that's when the news started coming out that they had like their first case, and it was just crazy. And I feel bad because like, so our director was supposed to come back and film like a bunch of other videos for like huge bands, like bands way bigger than us, and then he ended up getting stuck. You know, he couldn't come back over because they shut down the flights. And so I'm glad we got in when we did, but
Oh
I
yeah,
feel
for
bad
sure.
for all those other bands.
So, you know, with the song Chemicals, when was the, you know, when did you start writing this song? When did everything kind of start, percolating in regards to this comeback?
Oh gosh, what was it, like 2 years ago? I think I
Yeah,
would
I'm
say.
yeah, I'm like trying to remember like what apartment did I live in? And that's like my time frame. I think it was like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I like we actually had written another song that we were like thinking, oh, this will be the song for when we come back. And then I think like when we wrote this one, it was like this one's way better.
Yeah.
Like forget about that other one.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, not
And
that the
so
other song is bad, but this song I feel like is more balanced. Like
yeah.
between, I don't know, it's got a decent amount of heavy parts and I don't know, catchy chorus. It's just more
Hmm.
balanced. The other
Yeah.
song maybe was a little bit too light to come back with.
Yeah.
Did anything feel different in regards to doing this song than anything from the debut album?
I feel like I feel like our direction just changed a little bit. Um and I think that was another reason why like there's like another song that we were working on that felt like it was a little bit like stagnant compared to like the direction that we want to go in. So I think like moving forward we're just kind of focusing on having like Kristen was saying like a little bit more balance and like just I feel like we're just have like kind of a new sound but like we still kind of sound like us. So,
Yeah, definitely a more mature sound, I think. Not that,
mhm.
there's anything wrong with our first record, but that we've grown as people, and I think our tastes have changed a little bit and we've all matured. So that is kind of reflected in the songwriting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
love that. I love the first album. I don't know how I got around to discovering you guys, but I was just like I really enjoyed it, and I swear I was like completely obsessed with the song "What's Left Inside."
Yeah.
I used to just have it on like repeat and just watch the video over and over again, listen to the song over and over again. I like download the album and I would have it on my iPod, listen to that song over and over again. I would listen to the rest of the album, but I would listen to that song like so many times. I don't even know what the count is about how much I listened to that damn song.
No, I mean that song's definitely a banger. I feel like it's probably like all of our favorite song, if like off of that album, if not like one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that one really is one too that I feel like kind of reached every audience as opposed to just like one specific audience, which I think was really what was really cool about that one too.
What was sort of your motivation behind that song? Kind of talk about like sort of like behind the scenes of that song.
Um, well, so that song's about my dad. We didn't have the greatest relationship growing up, especially when I got into my teenage years and I started playing in metal bands. And he's super religious, and so we kind of butted heads there. And he kind of shunned everything I did, like even up until recently, which is super interesting. He's never listened to my band, refused to go to a show. Um, until recently, a friend of his that he went to high school with um, apparently heard of my husband's work and our band and said, you know, your daughter's band is really good. And my dad was like, what? Like, now like he's got this friend from years ago that's telling him to like listen to our band. Like we've made it, like we've reached that far. And so then he goes back and starts playing all of our old videos. And now my mom says he's like obsessively watching our videos. It's just crazy because we've been a band since 2013. He's never played our songs, not even once.
And it took his friend to.
Well, this year until like I think this happened like 3 weeks ago.
See, I told
Pretty
you.
crazy.
People are staying at home and people are watching things they
Yeah.
probably wouldn't watch.
There you go. But yeah, we just didn't have a good relationship, and that song was just years and years of pent up just emotional turmoil that I needed to get out. And I feel it's I don't know, it's very cathartic, and I feel like I have a better relationship with him now. Like I've moved past some of those issues. And I think that's the whole point of songwriting is, to help you get through stuff and feel better about it. You don't want to be sad about it forever. So
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Did you realize that song was about him?
Yeah,
or
because
Kristen?
my mom
Oh.
my mom told him. She was like, I think they got into a fight or something, and she tried to use it against him. She's like, even your daughter doesn't like you. Listen to this. I'm like, come on, Mom. Like, it's not like that. I don't dislike my father. I have a lot of respect for my dad. He was a good dad. It's just, there's just some things we didn't see eye to eye on, and music was one of those. And anyway, but yeah, he unfortunately knows it's about him.
But what I liked about the song, and I think maybe this is what resonates with so many other people, is that, even though it is, written, this is about your dad, but I feel like it's in a way, and in the way Kia performs it, her vocals, there's room for interpretation with it.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when I was, when I first heard it, I was maybe like a year and a half or so out of like a very abusive relationship. I was with this woman, and she was very, emotionally abusive with me, and even like I'm still like dealing with it mentally. But at that time, when I heard that song, there was something about it that really resonated with me in regards to what I was feeling, and that's why I listened to it probably thousands of times.
Well, no, that's awesome. And like, we want fans to be able to have their own interpretation like that. And, I think we did kind of leave it more open ended lyrically on purpose, just so people could make their own connection to it. Cause yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it was a tough song. That was probably the fastest song I ever wrote. It came out in under 5 minutes, and I sobbed when I wrote it. I was bawling. I wrote it in our old apartment in Novi, back when we lived there, and Joey wasn't home. I usually don't like to write or sing in front of him because I'm not a good vocalist. Kia is a million times better than me, so I don't like to sing in front of people, but I think I had gotten into a fight with my dad or something happened, and it just like poured out, and the song was like done in like 5 minutes, at least on acoustic guitar. We had to transpose it to what it is now, but yeah, I'm very happy other people can relate to it.
And speaking of such, what is like the sort of like the songwriting process in this band? Who does what? Do you kind of bounce ideas off each other? What do you guys do?
It's different for every song. That song in particular, I pretty much wrote by myself, but other songs we all, like Chemicals, was very collaborative. Everybody kind of contributed in some way or another, lyrically, and I don't know.
Yeah, I think
it depends on the song.
I think like one interesting thing, I was thinking about this earlier with like the way that we wrote Chemicals. So a lot of times what happens is like, or at least I guess for Chemicals, I'm not too familiar with all of them, but I feel like with Chemicals, like Kristen and Izzy kind of wrote most of the instruments together. And then I remember like Kristen sending me over like, oh, these are just like melody ideas. And so usually like when she does that, it's not like words, it's like la-di-das. And I remember the first time I heard it, we like both texted each other at the same time. hey, when you go la da dot dot dot, it sounds like you're saying light it up and burn it to the ground. And we were like we were like both were like, holy shit, we both thought
Yeah.
that at the same time. And
Oh
then
yeah, right
we
there.
we like
Yeah,
built
yeah,
that
yeah.
whole song around that one line.
Yeah, we did.
We were like, wow, well, okay, well, if we do say light it up and burn it all to the ground, what are we talking about? And like we built that whole song around
Yeah. It's that
Kristen going la di da 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 di da.
Yeah,
Which I think that's so sick. Like I don't know that we've ever really done that and like written a whole song around one line that was actually just la di das at one point.
Yeah. And sometimes that's the best way to write music. I know a lot of bigger artists do that. I like to watch a lot of videos on how other artists write, and Linkin Park, they write that way. And I know Sia does as well, the pop singer. She just starts by humming something over top of, whatever you have, a chord progression or whatever. And it's a little more freeing that way, because if you're tied down to a lyric, it can constrict what you're able to do with the melody. So it's easier to use short syllables like la-di-da, in order to come up with your melody first, and then you fit words in later. And not that lyrics are second to melody, but I just find it makes for a catchier song. When you have a better melody first, as opposed to being constrained to whatever your lyric is.
Yeah, definitely. What was sort of when you're starting to write this new song, Chemicals, where did you go next with it? Where was the ideas popping, to what you wanted to write about?
So we took a lot of inspiration just from our own experiences touring with other artists. There's a lot of artists, unfortunately, that struggle with addiction, and touring is like the worst place for them to be, because like fans want to party with you, and so they will, if they know you have an addiction, they will literally bring your drug of choice to you for free and be like, hey, do you want to smoke this with me, or do you want to shoot this up with me, like just so they can like have 5 minutes of your time, essentially. And so it's like the worst place for the artist to be. And then on top of that, these artists will have labels and managers that also know that they've got addiction problems, but they tend to want to keep them on the road because they're selling records and they're making a ton of money. So they kind of just look the other way.
No love.
So we just kind of, I feel like that hasn't been talked about before.
Yeah.
There's a lot of songs that are about addiction and partying and whatnot, but there's nothing that specifically addresses that nuance, I guess. And so
yeah, I think too, like one of the biggest things for me is like you listen to these artists that have these like amazing albums, and they're like I've seen comments before of people saying like, oh, their music was better when he did drugs, or their music was better when they were drunk all the time. And like people that don't separate the fact that like that's a person, like they shouldn't be getting fucked up all the time just so that you can enjoy their music. Because if you were truly like a fan of someone, like you would want their best interest, and you would say,
of course,
maybe you'd be like, oh, I'm so happy that they're sober now, instead of like, wow, they were so much better and they were on drugs all the time. Like that's so messed up. And I feel like that's so common. It just shouldn't be so normalized for people to be okay with like saying those things. And expecting an artist to like stay fucked up in order to like please them, I guess.
No, I feel you. To a certain extent, I feel like there has been a lot of progress to going where there's a lot of people leading more of a healthy lifestyle on the road and whatnot. And I know of some people who have quit drinking, quit doing drugs. And there's people like, the greatest example, cause I come from more of like the hip hop scene too here in Detroit. And like one of the, the greatest examples is Royce the 5'9", who he quit drinking many years ago, and now he's doing some of the best work, not only of his career, but in hip hop period. and you love to see it. So, I'm always on the side of, these are people too, so I want them to be healthy, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
and a lot of times you never know, like if they quit doing these vices, these drugs or whatnot, they might be able to create on a whole other level, and
Yeah.
maybe once they quit, they're still not at that place to feel comfortable enough to get to that level. So maybe that's why people are like, I liked him better when he was fucked up all the time, but they're probably still dealing with it even though they're sober now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I just thought it was something that needed to be addressed. So I'm very happy with the, I don't know, the subject matter of the song. I mean the whole song, but particularly the lyrics. It's definitely more to it than what it seems on the surface. It's a
Yeah.
pretty big issue.
What's you got a new song out. What's sort of like the perception of the band? Like what sort of like what do you hope to accomplish these days? Making making new music, in comparison to what you were doing before with the debut album, the self-titled album, touring and whatnot. I know right now we're not touring because of the pandemic, but like what is there more freedom now you have? Is there what's sort of like your creative like motivation these days?
Sorry, my cat scared me. Um, so I would say like what I've kind of am hoping for, and I feel like we're all on the same page, is like more variety of subject matter on this album, talking about things that like aren't talked about very much, as opposed to just kind of staying in like one category. I know like Kristen and I were kind of talking about it's hard to write about. Sometimes it's hard to write about like tough material when you feel like it's easy to write when you're like really depressed all the time, but sometimes when you feel like you're not in that box of like feeling sad, it's hard to write about those things. And I think that kind of helped us open up and think about, well, we could write about things from other people's point of view and things that maybe I've never personally dealt with or Kristen's never personally dealt with, but maybe people that we know have. So I think like definitely a more variety of subject matter is kind of at least one of my biggest goals for this next album for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. And as far as not just the writing, but I think, yeah, eventually we do want to be able to tour with our new songs, and whenever this the whole pandemic thing lets up, hopefully by next year, yeah, definitely we want to tour again. So that's kind of the goal. And then who knows? We'll see what happens when it comes to working with a new team or a new label. But we're just kind of taking it one step at a time and trying to find the right fit for us. So it's a
Yeah.
big step. So I don't know.
In the meantime, how do you feel? How do you want to like kind of stay out there until all this clears up with the pandemic? Definitely with the new songs, but do you have anything like planned to just kind of keep your keep the name out there, keep the music out there?
Yeah, I think we're just our plan for now is to just keep releasing singles. I think that's more the move than dropping a whole album. It's easier for us as independent artists to be able to put the time and energy behind each song that it needs
Yeah.
to reach everybody. So it's easier for us from that standpoint to just put singles out. And then, if we get the right backing, then we can afford to do the whole album. We will, but
I
it,
think we're all kind of more aware of like the amount of content that we really need to be putting out other than
yeah,
just singles.
yeah,
Um, because of like, I feel like when our first album came out, like influencers weren't really like as big of a thing. And I feel like now that it is, it's so much easier to be able to try to stay relevant on the internet when, as long as we just have content. And there's a lot of like we all are so like obviously we have a lot of things in common, but we're all also like very different, and we all like different types of content online. And I think that's kind of helped us kind of like brainstorm some cool ideas that, we still have to kind of work on. But I think that's also going to be really important because we can't obviously put out a new single every week or whatever. So
Right. Like the cool thing was when were coming back, you had the little short clip where they're showing all the social media clips about like you guys coming back, when y'all come back, is the band done, blah blah blah, and then like I see you guys reposting a lot of the fans comments and stuff on Instagram. How does it feel to see that there's still people around that like you guys had at that previous album that are excited like me that you're back?
It's crazy. I mean,
sick.
Yeah, it's definitely bigger than I expected. That's for sure. Like I thought, I don't know, we'd make a little splash, but I didn't think it would be like a whole ass cannonball. I mean, it's crazy. I don't know.
Yeah. I think we were kind of like also not expecting the worst, but like definitely not expecting
Crickets.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We weren't, I think we were like prepared, like, okay, this might not do great. Like we'll do a little something, but I think for sure we were all kind of taken aback, like, whoa, pretty cool.
I mean, yeah, we've definitely had a way bigger response, I think, from this song than probably any song that we've put out to date. I mean, just seeing the fan responses, and there's already so many covers and reviews and tons of articles, like, in particular, certain magazines that I won't name sharing the song and actually having something good to say about it, like magazines that are typically very hard to please.
Right.
And again, I won't name names, but I was like, whoa, like they left a good review about this song. Like, okay, that's when you're doing something right.
Maybe it was just me, with the new songs and everything from the debut album, but Conquer Divided was like a band that's like it was just a really cool metal band. And what sort of like this is a band that's all women, and sometimes that can be a weird thing in regards to the perception of the metal community. Like, how do you sort of balance that? Because I feel like your debut album was this was just a cool album, it wasn't a cool album from an all woman band, so
right.
How do you sort of kind of balance that where you're like, okay, we're all women, but you just want to be a really good band?
That's the hard part, and that's what we've always strove for, I think, from the beginning. So that's kind of why we sort of played down our image a little, especially on the first album. We didn't really, I don't know, there's certain bands that definitely use their image more than than we do. And but yeah, we wanted to be respected just like any other band.
I feel like it's crazy, like if we release like a lyric video or something where it's just album cover or whatever song, no one really says anything about it. And then when it's a music video and you can clearly see us, it's like, oh, they're only good because they're only popular because they're all girls. And it's like, well, you didn't think that when you couldn't tell that we were all girls, you know? And another thing that I think is I think people mean it in such a nice way, but I feel like it is kind of harmful, is when they say to Janelle, oh my God, I had no idea. You sound just like a guy. As if that's the standard, she's a good vocalist. She doesn't need to really be even if she sounded like a female vocalist, that doesn't mean she's not good,
Yeah, it's like a backhanded compliment or kind of.
Or oh, you guys are just as good as the guys.
It reduces you to your gender kind of thing. Yeah, so it is a bit of a struggle to see those kind of comments, but I guess what can you do, comes with the territory.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So, with a lot of the, you talked about it a little bit already, but, right now we're going through another civil rights movement with the Black Lives Matter, and that's also sort of generating subsets of it. There's things coming out in certain industries in regards to sexual abuse and everything. Again, the civil rights movement is basically motivating other little different things to come
Yeah.
out. You know, coming back, writing new material. How does this sort of time in society sort of affect your songwriting and how you just carry yourselves as women in this band?
I kind of feel like it's inspired us because we already like I said earlier, we've already been wanting to like touch on a lot more like serious issues that like maybe not everyone in the band has dealt with or anyone in the band has dealt with. And I think it's really important to talk about a lot of those things. And I think that like I kind of feel like we wanted to bring light to some of these things anyways, and now it's kind of like now it feels like we can and people will be more accepting of it. um, which is nice because it is hard to talk about those kinds of things. And I feel like we kind of all were like, well, they need to be talked about regardless. But now it feels like we have a little bit more kind of like people that we know will support us. And I think it kind of just helps us think of like even more things, to write about. Like we've already kind of wanted to talk about like sexual abuse, domestic abuse, racism, police brutality. We've wanted to talk about all of those things, and
Yeah.
it feels like now we kind of have a little bit more of like backing for that too, which is nice.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I think if we would have touched on the topic like even 5 years ago or before the Me Too movement, we probably would have gotten a little bit more backlash from the metal industry. Because, I mean, people are already quick to call you a bunch of lesbian feminists or whatever
Yeah.
for talking about serious issues. Like they just reduce you into this
Right.
box, and
Hmm.
it's not. I don't know. So yeah, I think the climate is more conducive to touching on those topics.
Hmm.
Do you feel
And
like
I
in the
think
metal
it's
community that there is like just more more women voices like out there these days that are making it easier for a band like you to be able to talk about those issues?
um I don't know that it's necessarily the scene in general. I think that you know, it's hard for women to stand up or even men to stand up and admit that they've been sexually abused or otherwise abused in any way. And so I think once, you know, one person might stand out and then another person stands out, and that kind of brings strength to someone who maybe has been like holding this inside of them for so long to finally say, like, oh well, this happened to me too. And I think like I mean it does contribute to the fact like we are able to now talk about these things a little bit more openly because people like recognize that it is a thing that happens. So I mean I guess I would say it does kind of contribute to it in a way, because it empowers other people to stand up, and then that empowers us to be able to also stand up at the same time.
Right. And I think too, you kind of and this kind of touched on something we talked about, at the beginning is like we're going through this civil rights movement, but we're also going through it during a pandemic. So to a certain extent, a lot of people are kind of bored. So I feel like at times there's like people are actually kind of finding the strength to be able to out people who are abusers during these times, because I'm seeing it across the board in a lot of different industries, whether it's electronic music DJs, people in local rock scenes, stuff like that. So it's just like, I don't know if it's just out of boredom or that this time of confinement made them feel safer or something, but we're going through a time where you're seeing a lot more people being outed for their shitty behavior.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to like how Kristen was saying, if we wanted to talk about these things before the Me Too movement really like took off, it would have kind of been like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just a crazy feminist. And I think like I don't think that people who come out as victims do it because they're bored. I think they do it because they finally feel like they won't be judged for it, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much victim blaming that happens in, you know, all over the world, not just in certain genres of music or in certain areas of the world, all over the place. And I think that when you see so much victim blaming, it's hard to come out as a victim because you don't want to get blamed, because no one deserves to be blamed when they're the victim. And so I think it's mostly like people just have the time to really sit and see like there's other people that share my story, and that makes them feel like then they can share their story too.
Yeah, like yeah, it comes to a time where they see someone share their story and be like, all right, I can't just let them, flail in the wind about that. Can
Mm-hmm.
I, like, do I have the strength to, share my story too?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's such a big thing. Like, I think that's why the Me Too movement took off, because it was about when you see someone talking about those things, even if you're not a victim yourself, you let them know that they're not alone, and that you're proud of them for sharing their story. And if you are also a victim, that's why you say, like, well, me too, you know, and I understand and I'm here for you. And I think that empowers other people to then come forward. And that's why it's kind of like a snowball effect, I think.
What do you hope, the listeners of the new song, your new music, even the debut album, get out of listening to Conquer Divide, all these great songs?
Um, I would say I don't think there's anything specific. I've like one thing that I think we all find in common is like we want people to listen to our music and interpret it in whatever way helps them. You know, what's left inside doesn't mean the same thing as it does to Kristen,
Yeah.
and it doesn't mean the same thing to everyone as it does to Kristen. And I think that like she wrote it in a way that she knew people, I mean, I'm speaking for you and I'm sorry, but
Okay.
in a way that, you know, she knows people can relate to it. And I think like if you listen to a song and you can't relate to it in any way, I mean, it's still a good song, but I find it so much more powerful if you can kind of find your own meaning in it.
Like a song like that,
Love you.
like What's Left Inside, like she writes it, but you sing it. Where do you find the connection in her words?
It's kind of, I feel like it's all kind of dependent on like when I'm singing it and, you know, when I'm performing it, and even down to like which line I'm singing. I don't think that like when I performed What's Left Inside, for example, like whether in the music video or in the studio, I don't think I was ever really thinking about one specific person or one specific incident in my entire life. It kind of just depended on what I was singing about. And sometimes I was even able to think like, well, if I was Kristen, this is how I would feel during this part, and even doing like performing it that way too, if that makes sense.
Totally does. Totally does. As we wind things down, like how are you guys like dealing with the whole pandemic thing? How you keeping your mental faculties in order? How you getting letting the time pass by? How you been during this whole pandemic?
Well,
Kristen?
so I actually ran headfirst right into it because I'm sure you've heard I'm a nurse. So I was working at the University of Michigan doing a COVID contract for like 3 months just to help them out. They opened up a brand new unit in their pediatric hospital because I guess the whole unit is a negative pressure unit. So it like takes all the dirty air and shoots it out into the atmosphere. um, but anyway, no, it was crazy. It was pretty rough. Like we probably lost 80% of the unit, and
Wow.
like if you are needing a ventilator and you have COVID, your chances are not good. And this is best case scenario. University of Michigan is like top 10 hospital in the country. It's
Right.
um, you're in the best case scenario, and still like, yeah, it was crazy. Like I've been a nurse for 13 years and probably seen in that time period maybe 4 people die. in 13 years. And then just in that 3-month period, I had like 8 patients that I was personally taking care of that died. Um, and I'm, doing everything I can for them, running my ass off, and they're on 20 drips a piece. And like, it was crazy. You go to like turn the patient, move them from side to side, and they have a fluid shift in their lungs, and they go into cardiac arrest 10 minutes later and they're gone.
Wow.
So it's pretty wild. So currently I'm helping out. So that kind of tapered off. We lost most of that unit, unfortunately. And then Michigan kind of started coming back on the upswing. We don't have as many cases. It's a lot better now, but now the pandemic is crazy in other parts of the country. So Texas is getting hit really hard right now, Atlanta and Arizona. And so now I'm doing another COVID contract in Arizona, in Phoenix, until mid-September to help them out, because they need ICU nurses down there. So yeah, so that's what I'm doing. I'm home right now in Michigan just for like 2 days on my days off, but I have to fly back Wednesday. So
Well, thank you for your service.
Proud of you.
no problem.
Proud of you. Thank you for everything.
No problem. I mean, don't thank me. I'm just doing what I can to help. But
And it's a lot. Thank you.
yeah, it's crazy. It's definitely something I'll never forget, especially like right now, Arizona's not that bad. They're kind of on the upswing again. Like their cases are tapering off and they're doing better. So right now, this contract I'm doing is a lot better than when we got hit here in Michigan. So it's not so bad, but the Michigan one, that was definitely something I'll never forget. Like it was wild. And I've seen some shit in my days, because I work downtown Detroit.
Oh, okay.
At a level 1 trauma center. So I've seen some shit, and even this was topped that.
Wow.
So wear a mask, people.
Yeah, wear a mask.
Wash your hands.
Yo, I got a ton of masks,
Stay the
man.
fuck home.
The silver lining in all this is that like I've been wanting masks to be like a social norm like forever. So now I have like a whole collection of masks of all types. Like,
Honestly, I don't mind it, because I'm like, now
Right.
I don't have to like smell people's bad breath.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's always like when I'm at work, it's always like the nurses like with the worst breath that want to give you report like right next to your face. Like they get like right up, they're like breathing like their hot air breath on you, like because you have to like pass report off to the next shift, like, and it takes like a half hour, and so you're listening to this person talk, and like they just have
Stank
hell
breath,
explosives. And now I'm like, oh, this is great. I don't have to smell it anymore. Like, can we just normalize this?
Yeah. At least I hope we normalize it to the point where if you're sick and you still got to go out, wear a mask.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't even mind like the psycho cleanliness in public, and just all these measures companies have implemented. Like, I think it's great, because I was already a germaphobe,
Right.
because of being a nurse. Like, I don't know, I was already a germaphobe before the pandemic, and now everybody's just acting like I previously acted before the pandemic. So I'm like, everybody just leveled up to my level now. So I don't mind it.
Always used to have at least 3 things of hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
So get on her level now.
Right. Kia, how have you been dealing with the pandemic?
I've been doing better since I've been back at work. So I work at a preschool, and we closed for about a little under 2 months, I want to say. And I was going crazy. I gained like 20 pounds, so that was cool. And then I think my mental health really took a toll during that time. I've never really considered myself to be a super anxious person or anything, and I kind of feel like that really triggered my anxiety, and like to the point where like now I still am dealing with anxiety like all the time, which is like I know some people have dealt with that their whole lives and it's still very new for me. Um, but now that I'm back at work, I'm doing a lot better. I decided to go back to school. Um, and so I feel like having something to do and like being able to just like work with kids all day is fun and I love it. I will say the hardest thing is, trying to like explain to them why they have to do things a certain way now, like we have about 15 kids in my classroom right now, and we usually can only sit about two kids at each table for meals. Um, and so it's hard for them, especially because when their friend is on the other side of the room, they want to yell, and we're like, it's too loud. So it's definitely been hard to like kind of explain to, 3, 4, and 5 year olds like what's going on. And I'm just really hoping that we don't have to close again, just for everyone's sake. But I also am kind of like, maybe we should, if people can't like get their shit together, because
Yeah.
like I live in Boulder, and CU Boulder just opened up this week, and so like college kids from all over the place now are like living like 2 blocks away from where I work and where I live, and it's just like that's very stressful to me.
Ugh. Wow.
Not ideal. Not ideal at all.
Cool. It's been great talking with you, you two. Is there, what's the plans for the future? I mean, I know we talked a little bit about it, but, is there anything, final thoughts that you want to just tell everybody about the band or about, yourselves? Go ahead and share that.
This is always the hard part. I don't know.
I know. I mean, we definitely do have some more stuff planned. Like I mentioned earlier, we have been working on like some content, like just some fun, like not necessarily music related content. We do have a few songs that we've been working on that are not necessarily, ready to be birthed into the world quite yet. But it's something that we're definitely working on. Yeah, I feel like it's just kind of now, just gotta wait and see a little bit longer. Just a little bit longer.
Where can people go online to get more information about Conquer Divide?
www.conquerdivideofficial.com is a great place to start, and then you can follow us pretty much everywhere at Conquer Divide, and then Facebook is / Conquer Divide USA.
And they got a lot of great merch on the website, so go cop some merch.
Yeah, we do.
Go cop the new single. Go buy it, and go on their Bandcamp and go buy it.
Yes.
Please buy a single.
Yeah.
Buy it.
I dropped the $2 for the single, so you can too.
Ooh.
All right.
I appreciate it.
No problem. All right, Kia and Kristen, it's been great talking with you. Good luck on everything. I've been so psyched that you guys are back. I can't wait to hear more music from Conquer Divide. And thank you for taking the time out to come on Fresh as the Word.
Of course.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Fresh as the Word podcast, hosted and produced by myself, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier, empowered by Anchor at anchor.fm/Fresh as the Word. Fresh as the Word theme music provided by Steve O. You can find more of his productions at iamsteveo.bandcamp.com, and that's EYEAMSTEVEO.bandcamp.com. Fresh as the Word is available on all major streaming platforms. Please rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher. If you want to support Fresh as the Word, please consider pledging via Patreon at patreon.com/Fresh as the Word. Follow Fresh as the Word on social media on Twitter at Fresh as the Pod, on Instagram at Fresh as the Word Podcast, and join the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Fresh as the Word. For more information about Fresh as the Word and our other podcasts, Breaking Records and Renaissance Soul, and a collection of pop culture articles and reviews, please visit freshasthepodcast.com. Thank you for listening and your support. Goodbye and good night.
Fresh is the word.